and over, and we have tens of thousands of sermons we pulled out of this thing. But today I want to bring you a different perspective of that same sermon. Let's read Matthew 14, 22 verse 36. Matthew 14, verse 22 to verse 36. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat. Notice this. He told them to get on the boat. Immediately he made them get on the boat. He sanctioned them to get on the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When his disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter said to him. "Lord, if it's you." Peter replied, "Lord, if it's you, let me get out of the boat and come to the water onto you." And he said one word, "Come." One word, "Come." Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed back in the boat, the wind died. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him and said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The Lord has talked to me all week about how he's sending them out and how he wants to be faithful, them to be faithful to him. This is what I must ask you guys. When the tough gets hard, are you keeping your eyes on Jesus? Or do you have doubt in your heart? Where's God? Where's God? Where's God? Why is God not helping me out in my situation? The secret is God never, ever left you. He didn't leave the disciples. It might think for them that they're on the boat, rocking around in their difficult situation. He never left them. He was all the way there. He tested their faithfulness to him. We might have a surgery. We might have a record against our name. We might have things against us. But God never took his eyes off you. And he says a soft word. Come. Come. Come, my child, come. He didn't say 2, 4, 5, 6 words. He said, come. I am there for you. We don't serve a God of trauma. God hates trauma. And He hates trauma because we have no faith. I mean, Betty, it was painful, that surgery that you had. You must have thought, where in the world is God? Why do I have so much pain? I remember you, Phil. You said the pain was heavy. But you know what? God was standing next to that bed. He says, child, come. Just ask, and I will be there. Come. It doesn't matter how difficult it is in your family. It doesn't matter if you don't have food to eat. It all matters if you have the food of God. It doesn't matter. He says, come. One word. Paul, come. And you know what the funny part is? We have a funny God. He says, you of little faith? Man, it must take a lot of faith to put your foot out on the water and walk. That was not little faith. That measure was not little. He talked about the faith in Him. I don't care if you got a record. I don't care what's wrong with your life. But you never take your eyes off Jesus. You hang on Him. It doesn't matter how bad it looks. You look onto Him. When I read that little faith, God said to me, I said, God, how do you measure little faith? Because if I go fish with Richard, and he says, walk on water, I'll say to him, what? What? That took a lot of faith. That big surgery, Phil, was a lot of faith. That big surgery, Miss Betty, was a lot of faith that you put in others through God. Because if we don't have faith, we have nothing. Then the last point I want to make is our Father is the best catcher. When He went down, Jesus pulled His hand out. After He called out to God, He put His hand out. Our Father is the greatest catcher. And if you fall down and you have hard times, you reach your hand out and you ask. Because if you don't confess with your mouth that you do need Him. But remember the word come. He said, come. Walk on the water. So in Matthew 8 we read about a different measure of faith. A lot of faith. If you go and write down Matthew 8, go and read about what kind of faith that was. Because Jesus said in that Matthew 8, He says that's a lot of faith. So Jesus' measuring stick is not our measuring stick. Our measuring stick can never work. But His measuring stick is working. He could say, Peter, you are of little faith. But I want to tell you something. If you take your eyes off the cross and your eyes off Jesus, you're going to sink. The devil is going to get a hold of your heart. You're going to sink. How much faith, how much measurement have you? Because Jesus only said, come today. Come. Thank you, Jesus, for catching us. Thank you that we can cry out and say, come. I had the same Dick Williams. First time I sat in his crowd and I played that prophecy for you guys. He said to me, defy all the odds that's against you. Some people are rowers, boat rowers, and then there is water walkers. There's water walkers. Let me tell you, so much fiery darts was set against this ministry. And there's still people that was here that went out and still do firing darts all the time. I put my faith in God. With a little money, with a big money, with whatever we are. And every time, if I didn't have faith, our budget will not work. And I believe before the end of the week, we will have enough money to pay the prophet to come in town, to give him what he needs. Give him the honor and the glory. I believe that there is money going to come in to give this prophet his keep. And people tell me, why do you have the prophet out? He's so old. Let me tell you, he is so good. His vocabulary is one of the best vocabularies I've ever had. If he want to come, I'll throw the doors open. Because I can learn something from an 80-year-old pastor that got a great heart and a love to serve. So while we sing the song, the Lord let me pick a different song today. You all know it. I don't even have the words for that song.